Renee Hensley, thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy schedule to be with me today. I know we already had, I don't know, we should have hit record probably 20 minutes ago. We've had such a wonderful conversation.
Yes, for sure.
I'm looking forward to see where this goes because when you sent me your information, um, as I was saying, I just had so many questions about the work you do because it seems so meaningful and so important. You are working with young adults right now, which I
Mhm,
speak about frequently, and
mhm.
helping them network, correct?
Yes, yes. So it's been quite a journey. My daughter just finished nursing school, and she said, Mom, well, she didn't just finish nursing school. She's now been in as an active nurse. She just got promoted. Have to brag on, she
Congratulations.
got after her first year and a half, she's now an ICU nurse. And so she just, when she was graduating, she said, Mom, you're such a great networker. Can you tell me more? And can you tell my friends this and that? And I said, yeah, I guess I am. But she said, no, not in the traditional sense of networking, Mom. You're a connector. Like
Mm,
she was coaching me. She said, the people you know, and there isn't anyone that you can't reach out to and either connect them or help them. And she said, I want to know about that type of networking. And so the
mm.
more I thought about it, I'm just like, okay. And so I went back in time and just brought it up and I said, I really don't network, I net offer. And that's where it all began, Dr. Dan.
Yes. So that's, I thought that was such a cool word as I'm going through and reading your CV. I'm like, network, net offer. That was so cool.
Mhm.
What brought you to net offer?
Well, it's really kind of an interesting story. So when back in the day, I was a broker realtor right out of high school. I
Mhm.
knew I was going to get my associates and bachelor's at some point, but my father had passed away and I knew I wanted to be a business person. And so I got my broker salesperson. And so I'm not going to give you the year, but it was interest rates were 10 to 12%. That's all I'm going to tell you.
Ooh, I remember hearing stories of that, and thank goodness I never had to encounter that. But it
Yes.
feels like we're near there these days. But oh my goodness, I couldn't imagine. Oh,
Yes, it was incredible. And so my broker manager, she said, "Hey Dirks," that was my maiden name. She said, "Hey
mhm,
Dirks, you need to go to this networking thing. There's going to be a lot of
mhm,
movers and shakers, and this will be a
mhm.
good thing for you to get indoctrinated in." And she did it with that Cheshire grin, just like, hmm.
My.
So we went. It was like smoky hotel banquet center.
Okay, so
Everybody.
I'm gonna warn you, Renee, when you say smoky banquet center, I'm not asking you your age, but you're getting 10% interest rates, smoky hotel banquet room.
Yes.
I mean, oh my. I mean, I'm
Yes,
picturing The Shining all of a sudden.
that's very good. That's very good. You are right on point. And so there was all these realtors, there was all these mortgage lenders, the whole nine yards. And there was this man, we're going to call him Vinny V, and he's very well known in the Kansas City area. That's all I'm going to share with you. You'll
Okay.
actually find out his name in my book, but it doesn't really matter. But he was so instrumental because I went up to him. I was young, I was enthusiastic, and Nancy had shared the room, and he was one of those gentlemen that kind of skates around the room,
Sure.
kind of doing little twirls and such, knows everybody. And I went up to him and my naivety, and I'm like, "Hi, I'm Renee Dirks. I'm with so and so realtors." And he just looked at me, and then he was just like, hello. And he just walked away. And I was like, oh my gosh, what did I do? What did I
Well,
do? And, it was just, I didn't know him was my problem, Dr. Dan. That was my problem. I didn't know who he was. I was waiting for him to reciprocate and say, well, hi, I'm Vinny so and so with so and so. And that didn't happen. And so anyway, I was 19 years old and I was just, oh. But anyway, my manager came, she rescued me, introduced me to some developers who actually knew how to network. And it's how I got my first development area in real estate where you sell homes in a development
Hmm.
area,
Hmm.
and I connected the dots and I knew someone's daughter, and I did it the way I do it, which is I listen to people and then I figure out how I can help them or how I can offer help to them. And that's really how the
Mm,
concept of net offering really came to be.
right. That's how I can offer help to them. That's so different than that
Mm-hmm.
attitude of, "Hi, Vinny, here I am. Now reciprocate." That's
Right.
well, and are you finding our generation of young professionals are struggling in that area? What led you to focus on them?
Absolutely. What I have found really with the 18 to 30-year olds is that they are delightful. They are delightful via text or instant messaging through Teams in the workplace, personally. But you get them in person in a one on one environment, and they really, really struggle. They really
Yeah.
struggle.
That's an interesting point. Most of that generation that I'll communicate with, they are so good and precise and quick with
Mm-hmm.
the right emoji at the right time.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And then usually I'm fumbling around to reciprocate, and it turns out to be just a silly smiley face. So that, yeah, that generation born with smartphones in their hand, it makes sense that they would be better that way. So how do
Yes.
you help them bridge the gap? I am curious because much like you, I work with a lot of young people in that age group. I find them delightful to work with,
Yes.
but I find that their problems are fairly unique, being the generation born with with our current piece of technology.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things I've really focused in with them, and really anyone, I mean, it's really timeless, but I really have a love and a passion for really helping this generation, is having them identify their strengths. Nobody's really worked with them unless you have really good parenting or a really good support system for them to figure out what are your strengths and play to
Mhm.
those strengths. And I'm a big advocate of the Gallup organization. They have the 12 questions that every good manager is asking and their employees should ask. And Gallup is all about minimizing your weaknesses. Don't focus on
Mm.
your weaknesses, but minimize them and emphasize your strengths. And so that's really where a good portion of what I feel I have to offer is all about their strengths. And
Yeah.
those strengths become their net offer. And
Mhm.
you probably have someone of your daughters who's really good at this or really good at that, and they come alive and all kinds of good things happen. And if they'll lead
Yeah.
with that more often than not, they will find that they'll have a more authentic connection with someone.
As you encourage me to reflect on it, I'm going to get myself in trouble here. I'm not sure either one of them listen to the podcast anymore, but if they do, I'm about to find out.
Okay.
Because I have one who is quite the networker, the little social butterfly,
Mm-hmm.
and could just literally. There are some nights I'm like, "Will you? I love you, but you have to stop talking, please." And she can turn that on in social situations as well. And I've
Mm-hmm.
seen that happen before. And then the other side is absolutely the other side. She would
Mm-hmm.
much rather sit in the same room with you and text or instant message you. So I, this, that, what a problem to say. Like, I hope neither of my daughters listen to my podcast to hear that because I will get in trouble. But, and they're not that far apart in age.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an interesting point you make that,
Mm-hmm.
well, that there is that need to bridge that gap. I love the idea of looking at their strengths. Is there a particular method you use, or some Gallup assessment, or anything along those lines? Everybody's using the Enneagram these days. What do you use?
Yes, Enneagram's a great one. I use my favorite right now is Clifton Strengths. There's some free
Yes.
ones out there. LinkedIn Learning has a really great one. I think Dan Willis is the name of that particular instructor. And I believe he put it together with lynda.com, but I think it's Daniel Willis. But anyway, anything that will give you just an insight to your strengths. There's also another great one by Crucial Learning. It's SDI 2.0. That one
Hmm.
goes a little bit deeper. It's a little more expensive, but it
Hmm.
is good and it talks about your motives in line with your strengths and behaviors. So I'm an advocate of getting anything in front of them that will help them define that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I love the idea of using something objective, right? Because we can all
Mm-hmm.
sit and ponder and navel gaze and be like, well, I'm good at this, I'm good at that. But to have a true objective measure, say, here are your strengths. I'm a big fan of the Myers-Briggs type indicator. Most
Love
people,
that
my
one.
listeners, know that, right?
Yes.
What the differences are, what the preferences are.
Mm-hmm.
It gives you, especially if you do the full report, it gives you your strengths and when it comes to conflict and work environment and all that.
Yes.
So
Yes.
love that.
Yep.
Um, what I'm going to assume having a daughter in the workforce brought
Mm-hmm.
you to this inspiration, but was there other inspiration to bring about net offering specifically for young professionals?
I see people just struggle with networking. And so for me, I think the secret sauce that I would only share with you, Dr. Dan, is
Uh-oh.
something that we
All right,
probably resonate
everybody
with.
take notes now. We got the secret sauce. We are way too early in the episode to talk secret sauce, but that's how rich this one is.
It will. It really is about mindset. If you just think about taking, just by the slogan, I guess you would say. So I take the work out of networking, and I do that by just reframing it. Net offering. There's not a work to it. You don't have to entertain people. you know, it's not about what can you do for me? It really is, what can I do for you? For right now, I'm going to plant a seed with you, move on. And if it germinates, great. And because I think this generation, particularly, and I can speak from my daughter's perspective, is they really do want authentic relationships. They find small talk cheesy and why bother? And it just gives more meaning to the whole concept of net offering.
That's such a good point. Why, and what a strength, right? To be
Mm-hmm.
invested in depth relationships rather than small talk. Why do you think that is? I've never really thought of it that way.
Well, they have a lot to say. They do it through
Mm,
texting. They're so perceptive. They take in
yeah.
tons of data points. I mean, now sound a little worky here, but there's so
Mhm.
much information flying at them every day that they are what I would consider a bit discerning about what
Mhm.
takes their time. So my specialty is learning and development, leader development. That's what I do in my real world of work. And they they need to figure out quickly, is this a good situation, bad situation, is worth my time? When we used to develop, we could create e-learning that was an hour and a half. Not with this generation. We're
Mhm.
very much about micro learning, 3 minutes or less videos. We got to capture their attention, hold their attention. We're vying for time. And if they feel
Yeah.
that you're of interest and worthy of their time and attention, they'll give it to you. But if
You
not,
know, yeah, and I love the way you said that. What a beautiful way to frame how they're classified in a positive light, right? You said they are discerning, meaning they have
mm-hmm,
so much data coming in, they have to make decisions. So
mm-hmm,
often we hear that generation is accused of just being inattentive and bored, right? And those are just two sides of the same
right,
coin. But you're right. When you can share something quickly and get to the point and they deem like what you said there, they deem it worthy.
mm-hmm,
You got them. They're invested.
they are,
Uh,
and
and that
they
makes sense
want
when
to
it
be.
comes to relationships.
Mm-hmm,
Yes.
mm-hmm.
Uh,
There's so much fun to have, just like we're having a great conversation. It's been a sharing back and forth. I think that's what creates authenticity and building. Another thing I do that has been really helpful to people is a thing called conversation threads. Some people call them conversation starters, but the conversation thread requires you to listen to the other person. So just like I've been listening to you, if you say you have a dog and I have a dog, then we start to create that bond. And then we're more open to anything else you might have to offer. And, it's just like you knew what an American Eskimo dog looked
mhm,
like. So the minute you
mhm.
have those meaningful moments, that's what I call them, the discussion threads. The one I give that's a really good example is if we were at the office and you said, "Good morning, Renee," and you said, "How was your weekend?" I'd say, "Oh, good morning, Dr. Dan. It was great." Well, that's where a lot of conversations are. But if
Right.
I can help you when you say good morning to me and you say, how was your weekend? I'll say, I had an amazing weekend. We went up to Snow Mountain and we did some sledding. And oh my gosh, it was so funny when I was going tubing down the hill, Dr. Dan. Can you imagine? And that's going to trigger for you likely something about a story with snowboarding or
Right.
that I've been wanting to go there. How was it? And then we're off with a conversation. And
Yeah.
it's very, very simple. And people have really, they feel like I've broken it down to them. The art of small talk with some meaning.
Beautiful. I love that. I have been accused of going too deep when people say, "Hey, yeah, yeah, my weekend was okay. We went out to dinner." I'm like, "Really? Where'd you go? Tell me more about where you went to dinner." Because I'm always looking for a good place. What'd
Right,
you have? What'd you do? Right?
right,
Like, and I think 25 years in the psychotherapist seat, right? You kind of learn that, and I often
right,
forget there's a generation that really hasn't gotten there yet. So
right.
for the audience's sake and for the next few conversations I have, what are some of your what are your top few conversation starters you offer these young folks?
Well, I will tell you one thing. That's a great question. And I'm very much about being curious. And that helps people not be so nervous about networking.
Mhm.
So it's more about what brought you to this seminar? What brought you to this event? That can lead with amazing threads of information. Oh, my mother is presenting at today's event. Oh my gosh, who's that? It's probing questions. And that one is one of my favorites. Another one would be, I'm new to town. Are there any good events I should be aware of, associations I can partake in? And so I say that for the college students because I work a lot with career planners, career services, and their goal is to keep the young people interested in attending college. Well, some of the early success factors are really, did they get involved? How are they engaged beyond the classroom? And that has been really key. And that's one thing I stress to my daughter is get involved in your nursing associations, the college groups that you are interested in. That's a big one.
Wow, I feel like you've been at our dining room table for some recent conversations
Mm-hmm.
because, yeah, that's one, and my wife does an amazing job of it. Sometimes a little over the top that I see
Mm-hmm.
eyes roll a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But get involved, do things, and our oldest unfortunately went off to college at the tail end of the first year of COVID, and I'll
Mm-hmm.
never forget just how that was one of the things we want you to have the college experience,
Mm-hmm.
and there was no college experience, and of course
Mm-hmm.
many students floundered at that point. So now we
So
have,
true.
yeah, 22, 23, 24-year-olds that, just had a different experience and are still trying to
Mm-hmm.
recover from it.
It's so true.
So for those young people, um, what are some steps that you share with them to maybe start building a network that actually supports their personal and career goals?
Goodness. Well, a couple of them is really get, if you're in college, it really doesn't matter if you're in high school, college, even post college. It's really connecting with people that interest you. Don't be shy
Mhm.
and don't be afraid to reach out to them. That is key. I think one of the things I found, specifically and most recently, I can use my daughter is she was very proactive about meeting with her professors, getting to know her professors, and they became mentors to her because she was talking about her path and how did they get their path and how did that work, and she showed interest in them. She offered to help them. It was her own way of doing net offering. She helped
Mhm.
other people. She's always been curious. I think that is really a cool thing that this newer generation is about. So if you
Mhm.
spend time with them, they really will ask you questions. You just have to be willing to be forthright, open.
Mhm.
But I think that
Mhm.
ability to really connect with people, and even if you do it initially, I think that's what this generation too is. We're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. We still want to be digitally connected. So joining groups, finding out about people, responding to threads. That's often
Mhm.
where you'll meet people as well, as they found your response interesting and would like more insight or want to share or want to get together, however that shows up. But I think the most important one is really connecting with people that interest you,
Yeah.
associations that interest you.
Yeah, I love that example of your daughter reaching out to her professors and
Mm-hmm.
actually stepping outside a comfort zone to do that.
She did.
And I would guess so. And that strikes me like going back to the MBTI. I mean, I would
Mm-hmm.
assume she probably tends to be a little bit more extroverted. And may find that, I mean, that's, don't get me wrong, that's still hard, introvert or extrovert, to reach out to
Mm-hmm.
anybody, but especially an authority figure like a professor. But what a great move. What would you recommend maybe for young people who tend more towards introversion? Are there other ways to do it, or is it just, hey, you got to push harder out of that comfort zone?
Well, funny you should mention it because she is an ISFP.
Oh my,
I know.
ISFP. That is
ISFP.
just off the top of my head, that is a statistical outlier there.
Right.
Interesting.
Right.
Hmm.
And so she, to your point, she really did have to step outside. She
Hmm.
does get her energy from inward. Now, the interesting part is if she's in ICU or wherever nursing area she's been in telemetry and renal, is that she's the adult in the room. Like she's the one you want if someone says, that's not good. Your arm's missing. We're going to have to do something about that. She's going to be the adult in the room. So, but she's very extroverted in that work setting. But
Yeah.
when she gets home, she wants to be by herself. She wants to take
Yeah.
in,
Yeah.
So anywho, to your question though, it really is, you do have to push yourself a little bit. But
Yeah.
if you do it in how I would say, just not fakery and not in a fake way.
Hmm.
You truly do reach out to someone in a humble format. You are going to have to step out a little bit. But one of the
Hmm.
things I work with them, Dr. Dan, is it's really about the mindset. I have a whole mindset shift, kind of
Hmm.
problem solving activity I do with people. Funny, we were talking about the Chiefs before, and
Oh,
I take
Renee, everybody just shut off the podcast. Anybody paying attention heard Kansas City because we are recording this. Just a note here, right? It is
Yep,
today is the Friday before the Super Bowl.
it
We don't know
is.
what's going to happen. You might have made a lot of people really angry, or there could be people laughing right now. We'll see on Monday. But I'm so sorry to interrupt. You
No
did mention the
worries.
Chiefs. I'm sorry.
Yes. So we take a football helmet. It's a Chiefs football helmet.
Oh my goodness. She said it again.
And we put it on the person's head. And we get a volunteer. We actually say, is there anyone in the audience who hasn't ever had a football helmet on? So we look for that person and they volunteer and they come up. And so we have them put on the helmet, the football helmet. And so then I go through a whole series of questions asking them, well, how does it feel? Can
Mhm.
you move your head quick? And they'll be no, and it feels horrible. It's tight. I can barely hear you. The whole adage of that. And then after we debrief on that, and I have asked a few questions, then I take out my Royals, Kansas City Royals
Okay.
baseball hat, and I have them put that on. I said, now put that on. How do you hear me? Great. How is it heavy? No, it's light. And I say, well, turn it different ways. Can you wear it different ways? And they do. And so in that moment, for all those who've had a helmet on, not had a helmet on, I even have people come up afterwards and want to put the helmet on,
Sure.
but they just walk away with, I feel so much lighter. They understand the reason for the helmet, the defensive position, and which do you prefer? And so my
Mm.
concept is really, when you have the right mindset, the growth mindset, a focus in on what you can do for others, it changes that whole world of networking, and they don't
Yeah.
see it as work, and it really makes an impact with them. And I do some things, this is probably more in your lane, but I do some things to pull out some of their subconscious things that hold them back and bring it
Mhm.
into the conscious area.
Mhm.
And that's been a big hit with people as well.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah. What's an exercise to help make the subconscious conscious?
just focusing, I do a problem solving where
Mm,
we define the problem in as few words as possible, and then we talk about how it makes them feel, and then
mm,
we talk about how it might feel if they didn't have that problem. And so it's very, very minor, very, very quick, but it gets
beautiful.
them ready to embrace kind of everything that we're going to talk about with net offering.
Yeah, I love it. I think that's so good. And one of the things you mentioned, and I love the example, I just made the assumption that your daughter was trending more towards extroversion. You said no, no,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
ISFP.
Mm-hmm.
And that just goes to that point that to accomplish most things in life after we get out of high school, it
Mm-hmm.
really is about pushing outside that comfort zone,
It
choosing
is.
a growth mindset, choosing an evolutionary orientation where you're like, I'm going to do something a little bit different and step outside that comfort zone, whether you're introvert, extrovert, whatever it might be. That mindset is really going to help you go far.
Absolutely. I'll share a little bit about her as well. She, from the age of 5 up till 19, she wanted to go to the Olympics in synchronized swimming.
Oh
So
my.
most people are, you know, they're not as familiar. They
Hmm.
see it, as a pun or jokes or whatever. But she really made a career of it, and she was on her way to the Olympics and then blew out. But the whole entire time, when you think about like the ISFP, she embraced that fail forward, that it's
Hmm.
okay to fail. Like when you go
Hmm.
out to your first event and
Hmm.
learn from it and debrief with
Hmm.
someone and what did I do well? What could have gone better? And she lived and breathed really all through her synchro career and even through college that fail forward mentality, that it's not a bad thing to fail and to learn from it and move forward. Big deal.
Fail forward. Anybody listening to this podcast today after the Kansas City Chiefs comment, I'm glad you're still listening, but fail forward. That's so beautiful. And I've shared this many times. I work with a lot of people who struggle with failure, who
Mm-hmm.
fear failure. And when we fear failure, what happens? Well, we don't do anything. We don't step outside
Yes.
our comfort zone. We don't try new things. But to recognize that failure is helpful. Failure
Mm-hmm.
is productive. Failure means you're trying.
It
You
does.
just didn't do it quite right. And it's
Right.
okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, fail forward. I love that. I'm taking that with me.
Love it. I heard one acronym that was used, and I don't know if you have, Dr. Dan. False evidence appearing real was an
Yep.
acronym. Have you heard that?
I remember that from the early adolescent substance abuse 12, dating myself 20, 25 years ago. Yeah, false evidence appearing real. I
Mm-hmm.
remember that really well.
Yep. That's kind of how she just took it and embraced it. It's just that
Hmm.
I'm not defined by this failure. And that's interesting too that you've really encountered that a lot in your
Yeah,
practice.
that's yeah, and not only in young adults right now, but just humans in general.
Mm-hmm.
There are some of us out there that really struggle with that idea of failure, and we can go into the deep Freudian psychoanalysis of parents and all that, but it just really is. It doesn't matter why. It
Mm-hmm.
matters what you do with it,
Mm-hmm.
and what more and more people need to do with it is try, strive, fail, and pick yourself back up and do it again. And I love the fact that in synchronized swimming, your daughter learned that. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I
Absolutely. And
bet you
she,
she is. Go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I bet you she's one heck of a nurse.
She is. She is. She's definitely who you want on your side when things are going
Sounds
bad.
that way. That's
Yes.
hopefully I never have to encounter her with a missing arm, but um, so
Yes.
tell me, I'm curious, with this generation of, kind of 18 to 30-year-olds, what are some of the challenges, some of the common challenges you see them facing, and how are you helping them overcome those challenges?
Great question. One of the things is they want to achieve everything yesterday. So that has been a
Oh,
challenge.
Renee, I see that so much, so
Yes.
often. Young people sit in my office and say, I'm just so disappointed I'm not where I think I should be. And I look and I'm like, you got a college degree, you bought your own, and this is a
Mm-hmm.
particular person right now I'm thinking of. I'm just like,
Mm-hmm.
Now there are some others that like I get like yeah, college was a struggle. You went my daughter, you went as a COVID freshman and maybe
Mhm.
a lot of you haven't graduated yet, but that's okay too. You are where you should
Yes.
be.
Yes.
So that's
That's
that's an
the
interesting
key.
point. They want everything yesterday.
They really do. And trying to encourage them to become interesting, that is
Mm,
key because I don't want them making up things. I do want them
yeah.
to be interesting, but I also want them to learn from others and be curious. And
Mhm.
in that, they will develop the skills to become interesting. So it's
Mm,
kind of the cart before the horse thing. But if they don't get out there and try new things and experience life and have things to offer, that's why I focus in on their strengths right off the bat, because
mm,
I don't think they realize they have them at times or they haven't thought about them or put them up front and center. And I think if they do that, then they start to connect with people that are interesting. And then that leads them into other opportunities where networking is going to go on, by their net
yeah,
offering. I don't think
yeah.
networking is a bad word. I just
Mhm.
think if you can change the dialogue in your head for how you're going to proceed to create a big network and be a part of networking, if you have that net offering hat, if you will, if you
Mhm.
just put on that net offering hat and that's your mindset, the sky's the limit. It really is.
Absolutely. I love that idea. Become interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking of a young person in particular I was working with, struggling with depression. He, decided college wasn't for him. He wanted to go into the trades, and he was really good.
Mm-hmm.
But getting into a trade union is difficult, especially in Farmville, where I'm from, where it's cold out. There's not a lot of construction going on. So he was just getting started. So he got laid off every once in a while and would sit
Yes.
around in depression. I said, "Hey, bud, you can't just sit there. You got to go out there
Right.
and do stuff. We got to find some hobbies. You got to create. You got to do things. Get out into the woods or something." He said, "All right,
Yes.
I'm gonna go do this hike." I said, "All right, great. Let's get a hike in and see what happens." And he comes back a couple weeks later after this hike. I said, "Well, how was it? What'd you come up with?" He goes, "Dan, I'm a climber now." I said, "You're a what?"
Oh my
He said, "I was
goodness.
out there on that 13-mile hike and I decided I want to learn to rock climb." Now, much like Kansas, Indiana doesn't have a lot of rocks to climb.
Right.
But this young man found some climbing gyms and he's like, "I've been there 5 or 10 times already." And he showed me his hands are all gnarled up. I'm like, that's amazing. I mean, talk
That's
about becoming
awesome.
interesting to become a rock climber in the middle of Farmville. Like,
Hmm.
that was awesome. And I love the
That is
idea
awesome.
of just becoming interesting, have something to share, not just it used to be we would ask people, well, have you seen any good movies or what are you watching on TV? And now it's, well, what was the last good TikTok reel you saw? And it's hard to just after you've seen a couple million of them, it's like I don't remember. My brain's too numb.
It's
So you
true.
got to go out there and do things that are interesting, become interesting. I still look, I mean, you say become interesting, and I can't picture that bearded man in the suit holding some kind of beverage and he was the most interesting man in the world, right? Like
Yep.
more and more young people need to go become the most interesting person in their life to step outside their comfort zone and risk failure.
So true. It makes me think of my daughter recently. I just can't not brag on her enough, but sometimes, I would say this that we want our children to do better than us and
Absolutely.
experience even more. And she's done that. She reaches out. She is not afraid to like go scuba diving and things that are scary and just one foot and this I will share with you as well. This is another part of my secret sauce, Dr. Dan. I loan this song to anyone who's interested when they're going through a hard time, but it's that Christmas song, Santa Claus, Kris Kringle, put one foot in front of the other, and
Mhm.
soon you'll be find yourself walking out the door. Well, I usually
Mm,
sing it, but I'm not going to do that to your audience. But it really is just put one foot in front of the other, and just like your patient, the sky's the
yeah,
limit for him and anyone else.
absolutely. Yeah, and so simple, right?
Mhm.
Simple principles, but sometimes when the world gets complicated with smartphones and TikTok
Hmm.
videos and college credits and all that. It is hard to remember some of those basics. So
It
I am
is.
so glad you are out there on the front lines helping our young people to learn these things and to grow. Um, but kind of a wrap up question here, right?
Hmm.
So what's maybe one we've talked about networking really isn't good or bad. Well, I don't know. I'm sure you would share this or share this with me. It's kind of fun. We get to do cool things like this, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, how
Yes.
awesome is this? But
Yes.
what's maybe a misconception about networking that you'd like to see young people let go of?
Well, it's not difficult and it's not scary. One of
Mm,
the top 10, I was just looking at this stat, it's from Psychology Today, and they were talking about the top 10 fears, and the fear of rejection is like number five, number four, number five.
mm,
And so when it talks about rejection, that's what people often associate when I do my little Mentimeter poll, when I do
mhm,
speeches or keynotes,
mhm,
presentations, it says, when you think of networking, what's the first word that comes to mind? And people will be like, scary, you
mhm,
know,
mhm.
try to avoid, whatever. The words aren't always positive. You might have a
Yeah.
couple out there that would, but really, it's just the ability to take the time and um, realize that it doesn't have to be scary. It can be
Mhm,
fun. You're going to meet
mhm,
amazing people, and the relationship will be developed incrementally, but from a place of authenticity. And that's what I think people, if they will take that away in their heart and have it with good intention, a lot of good things will come from it for them. Um, they'll learn new cool things, kind of my net new learning, and then their net social worth goes up. And I like to think of it just as the net effect that they are going to have a great net effect in their life, in
mhm,
their world,
mhm,
and they won't be scared. They won't be scared when they hear the word networking or anything
mhm.
associated with it.
Yeah, that idea, that fear of rejection is a strong one out there. But you and
Mm-hmm.
I share a coach, a speaking coach, several coaches probably through that program, and
Mm-hmm.
they always tell us, hey, if you want to be good at anything, you got to get out there and get those at bats, right?
So true.
Win, lose, fail, get paid, not get paid, get those
Yep.
at bats in, and you'll get better at it. But if you're just doing something for the first time, you're not going to be good, and
Right.
that's okay.
Yes.
Um, I like to
Very
tell
much so.
whether it's young people or even older people in the dating world, much like failure being a good thing,
Mm-hmm.
rejection is a great thing.
Yes.
Rejection isn't about you, it's about
Right.
the relationship. Rejection simply means, man, you didn't want to take the time to get to know that person anyway,
Right.
right? It
So
wasn't going to
true.
work out. So
It's
it's
so true.
okay. But
Yes.
you
I
got to
love
get
that.
those at bats. You
Mm-hmm.
got to get out there and swing the bat and try. So,
Love
oh
it.
my goodness. All right, I want to recap a couple of these awesome things. Become interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Get out, and
Yes.
we talk about this in logotherapy. One of the three ways to find meaning is to do creative two ways: be creative and
Mm-hmm.
experience things, right? Those are
Yes.
interesting things. Get out there and see new places, do new things, create art or music or whatever it might be. And if
Yes.
you don't know how to do it, there's plenty of YouTube videos out there.
Yes. I love
and
that.
and if you get tired of the YouTube videos, there are amazing mentors like Renee that can help you. And while you're becoming interesting, don't be afraid to fail. Fail forward. That's so cool.
Yes.
Fail forward.
Yes.
Renee, where can people find out more about your work or if they want to be able to work with you?
Absolutely. They can go out to www.reneehensley dot well, let me see. www.netoffering.com.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Netoffering.com. I will make sure
Yep.
that is in the show notes. Um, I know you're out there on LinkedIn as well, busy out
Mm-hmm.
there. I'll make
Yes.
sure they can find you there. And I hope, I know there are so many young adults out there that would benefit from this work. I hope they call you, they contact you, and ask for that mentorship and that coaching because it sounds amazing.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dan. I appreciate your support. It's been absolute pleasure to get to chit chat with you.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for taking time. And look, I mean this, it's not, I'm going to try to make this not sound fake. Good luck to your Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah.
Only because I've gotten to know you and I appreciate you and respect you as a person. I hope you have a good showing at the Super Bowl this weekend. Good luck.
Thank you. We need it.
Yes, we'll see. Renee, it's been an absolute pleasure. You take care.
Take care. Thank you so much.